Now, of course, it's like a training session that you don't have all the time to practice all the different type of relaxation. But if you can at least try one or two, it would encourage them to say, oh, maybe that works. Or maybe they realize what the obstacles are, that they're not as easy as they thought. And the idea is that they are able to use it on a regular basis, which is very crucial. Because often people I see, even they learn good relaxation skills, they don't use it. But it's one of the most economic tools they can use because it's free. And they can just take 5, 10, even 15 minutes a day, and they would really benefit from doing it. But if they don't use it, obviously, they won't benefit. Okay. So establish a routine they can use it regularly, which is also preventive. I think Dennis mentioned that right? So in a way, to sort of deal with symptoms, relaxation are important, even in dealing with symptoms, because often when you're under stress, you want to reduce your stress level. You don't have the luxury or the mood to get into the root causes. That's not what you want to do with them. You want to reduce the stress. And yet, if one hasn't practiced it on a mini stress level, it won't work on high stress level. Right? So even if they have on a scale of 0 to 10, that's why we try to establish a scale, which is on your page 13. Don't underestimate the scale. You know, it's a subjective scale, basically very simple. 0 is no stress, which really no one is at. And 10 is extreme stress, which rarely anyone is at that level, but they may have it. Now, the idea is not to compare oneself with others. So let's say if we're doing it in a session. I'm not going to compare with Kenny in terms of like, oh, you are 8, I'm a 5, because her 8 and my 5 are not necessarily the same rating scale, but it's your own internal scale. So you know that what 5 means to you. Once you establish this with a ruler, one is able to give yourself a number, because I just take this quick. 11. Hi. Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, so sorry about that. So that you know, because sometimes it's hard to describe the language barrier, different languages, and their very subjective description. But they say 5 today, or at that moment, as Li-Ping said, or on the 7th, another moment. It gives themselves and other people how they fluctuate. And if they do relaxation, and see, oh, just by doing that for 15 minutes, it drops 2 points. That's encouraging to them. So that's useful to establish that scale for them to use on a mini scale. And if they practice a regular basis, then they're able to say, if I'm on a 9, they're much more effective. Just like doing exercises. We cannot run a marathon tomorrow. We have to do a little regular jogging around the block. So doing it preventively and practicing it is important, so that they can actually use it. So people who actually experience panic attacks, high level anxiety, right? They need very focused ability to reduce their tension. So that's the idea to establish it. Okay? Now, the different types of relaxation techniques that are incorporated in here. Okay? I don't know any of you have your favorite so far. Do you know which one? Whether you use it or which one that works for you. Anyone of you have something like a favorite types of mindfulness? Mary?
I like to dance.
Sorry?
Dance.
Dance, okay, good.
Meditation.
Meditation.
Exercise.
I'm singing.
Singing.
I do exercise.
Exercise, okay. Anyone else?
You want to sleep?
Sleeping? Okay. See, you know what is common amongst your aunts? The fact that many of those things that you find relaxing are not those of healing. Right? Some are meditation, of course, some are mindfulness, but many of you still like dancing or sleeping or exercising, which are great. So your clients or your participants may have other forms, so that which is fine, perfectly. The idea of introducing those tools to them is that, well, they may not have the time to exercise. And I have a client who said, I have an accident. I used to play sports a lot, and that's my real relief of stresses. Now I cannot because of my injury. unlimited. So those are another type of tools they can use. And all of them tools that you can use within like 5, 10, 15 minutes. Okay? So again, use whatever they have already chosen to use on a regular basis, very important. But those are the tools that say someone who has a panic attack of high anxiety level. They can't do exercises, they can't go out, they cannot even talk to someone. But that little 5-10 minutes, they will use it for that within your own privacy. Okay? So that's the idea. Now, let me just like run through briefly about those so that at least you're familiar with them and you can technically sort of like choose, right? Well, on page 13, okay, the breathing exercise. Now, I have also included, not in this package, but I think that Robert has given you handouts on some case scenarios, okay? We'll see whether we have time or not to use it. In terms of like, that little case, would you suggest someone using or avoid using certain types of relaxation techniques? Well, hopefully they can use a revision. But let me go through this sort of like so that you know what we're talking about. Breathing exercise is one of the most common that we use. Okay? Reason because we are breathing. So it's not something that's too complicated. And yet, it is something very important because very often when we're very anxious, our pace changes. Often we overbreathe. Sometimes we underbreathe. Like imagine someone who go into the room and just steal something, right? They hold their breath because they don't want to hit on breath. 作食失去 right? Like, 掩耳盜鈴 in Chinese, right? So you almost as if you hit your own breath. They say, you hold your breath. But more often than not, it's like overbreathing. The heart rate increases, you overbreathe, and of course, that can lead to hyperventilation, which can lead to panic attacks. Okay? So the idea about focusing on breathing is not only as a focal point, because very often people who are stressed, their mind is all over the place. Like in this session, even in here now, how many of us would say, I'm 100% focused? I don't think we can all say that. Like at the back of your mind, we think about, oh, what's for lunch, or will we finish on time, or whatever, right? And like me, I was expecting this phone call. I thought like, would it call, would it be disruptive? Not in my foremost my mind, but for truly using good relaxation, say I'm totally focused. But that's the idea about hypnosis anything, right? So that people can go into a totally focused trance state so that they can say, I'm receiving a message. Similar principle. But relaxation is saying that I can focus for just 5-10 minutes, right? Now, but it's not always easy because sometimes people feel self-conscious of their breath, right? So you have to sort of like find out whether the type of people, and suppose that they can actually tune in and give some time. And for people who are breathing very fast, you may actually have them to count 1, 2, 3, because they think this is normal. But they have realized the fact that, oh, you're over breathing, you're breathing fast. They say, so that's the most basic, but not for everyone. Now, the other one is on page 14. The body scan is basically just be aware of your body parts. It's almost like think about going for an X-ray. Or for those you scan go through the airport. They look at your body and then you scan them. Now, of course, typically people say, okay, let's start with your toes and you go to your head. You may not have time for all that. But people may say, well, usually my pain or my tension is in my shoulder or in my back, whatever, right? So that they know where the tension is. And then by scanning the body, you learn to say, gee, I'm a 7 in my shoulder, in stress level. I'm only 2 in my back. So you may do scanning, but they learn to say, let me learn to relax. Right? It's like gravity. See? If I drop this spoon, if I leave my hand, what will happen? What will happen? It will drop. Gravity. But very often we hold tight, right, of our body without knowing it. So that overall stress increases and the body becomes stiff because we're acting against gravity. So body scanning is to let them know that you can let loose. Just like when you're sleeping on bed. Some people say that I sleep, but I wake up and do tense because they're holding tight. Okay, so body scan is learning to relax. Something simple, but not easy to do well. Progressive muscle relaxation is like scanning your body, except the fact that you are so tense that you don't even know how to do it. Because this is my natural self. I don't even know how to relax. If you're in chronic stress, this is something you're so used to, right? So the idea is that you tense up further, and then you can contrast. Think about yourself being like an elastic band. You're stretched. This is how you've been for the last 6 months. I don't know how to loosen that. Well, let's stretch it further. So I tighten it. If you have the control power to tighten it, you have control to relax it. Right? So in your appendices, which I won't go through in detail, you have a whole group about how you tighten your heels and relax your feet, how you grimaces your face and relax your face muscles, how you tighten your shoulders and how you. And if you learn to do the breathing, you can tighten in together, such as when you breathe out, you loosen up. When you tighten, you hold your breath. So that people learn to see that, gee, I can see the 10 or 9 when I do that, I can see a 2 or 3 when I do that. So that's progressive muscle relaxation. Okay? Now, guided imagery is basically using, we call images, but images are just one sense. We talk about images like a vision. But how many senses do we have? Well, so how many 5 or 6 senses for spiritual and more, which I think are there. But how many are 5 senses, right? Which are what? Sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing, right? So basically, you think about mostly visual and auditory, right? But we have other senses. Aroma is a very strong sense. People usually have a good association. So when you spa, you smell a nice aroma. And when you smell that some aroma again, because you buy that bar of soap, you bring back memory of the relaxed time you in the spa by association, right? Or the touch, you were in the beach and you feel the sand. And then when you feel again, a sense of relaxation comes back. So some people are good, and some people are not good. So again, you have to ascertain. People with good visual or tactile, whatever, images, they can use this well. And yet, on the other hand, they'll be away. People are good at doing that, they may have bad experiences that are imprinted in the imagery. So when you allow them to have images, they may also those are the negative images that interfere. So provided you come to you for various reasons, different stresses, right? When you introduce this, they are also not devoid of other images. So again, you have to be sensitive to that. Okay? A powerful tool, but also need to be careful to use them. So I mentioned about mindfulness. Right? That's about mindfulness. So mindfulness is basically, relaxation, except the fact it's not like attitude. Because when you close eyes, right? Okay? Let's just do it for just a minute. And just, when you close eyes and see what happened, and how you can focus, or how you can avoid other distractions. Just see what it's like. Let's just do it for a minute. How many? not used to it. They think that 30 seconds is like minutes. They think it's so dragging. But as a practitioner of it, that goes like that. So therefore, they need practice. Because people would say, oh, that is too long. I mean, what is a minute in our life? What's 5 minutes in our life? Not much, right? But they are very stingy. Because also the people who feel like, I feel guilty. I've got house chores to do, I've got phone calls to make, right? That's too much. I got my kids to look after, I cannot afford that. So the attitude behind those exercises is important. That you not only deserve that time, you need that time. If not, you will not be as effective as a mother or husband or colleague because you don't allow time for that little restoration. But consider those attitudes and entrench. So when we do CBT, we talk a bit more about that. That interferes right into that, right? I think what Yiping also mentioned is important. Once you do that, you realize, oh, there are noises outside. There's the clock ticking. But before you did that, you didn't realize it. What does it mean? It means that you selectively choose what you attend to. You have the ability. So if people say that, oh, I can focus, I can do this, example that they gave you, say that, the clock has always been ticking. The truck has always been outside. You didn't notice it. So you have the ability to selectively tune in and tune out. Meaning that you also have the ability to tune in and tune out of your visual imagery, your breathing, or whatever. Right? And mindfulness is basically saying that I'm athletic in and out. I don't need to be drawn in and out, which is very, very difficult. I don't need to snatch onto it and say, I need to resolve that time in that time frame about what each other basically. I can let it pass. Okay? It can be a back in my mind. And sometimes I use this idea about worrying time. You can worry time tomorrow at 3 o'clock. That's a worry time. Interesting enough, they didn't work this idea. But once they do it, they realize I don't have to do it now. I've allocated a time, which is 3 o'clock every afternoon. When they come at that time, they might nothing to worry because the time has gone. But if they do, they realize I can do that. Right? So again, relaxation is a tool, as I said. But the pride, there's all this other background information, the attitude, and all that you need to be aware of. But nonetheless, it's a very important and useful tool to use. And you have to sort of gauge what types of person they are, right, to use it. Of course, there are other things like exercise you mentioned, dance, Tai Chi, yoga, whatever they may. And I think by interacting with them, you know why it works for them. And just encourage them to step up and doing it. Let me quickly go to that little case scenarios. That you all have a case scenario with you on the relaxation? Yes. Okay. All right. Great. Let me go in the reverse. Let's go to number 9, because we may not be able to do all of it. This stiff-looking elderly woman came to the first session for an assessment with her children, adult children, and she's really like this. This is a real case. She was like this, very frisky. Like any person would say that, like this is not very normal. But the adult children didn't even mention of that posture. They think this is quite normal. Okay, so if, of course not fair to you, right? Just the information I'm giving you. But if that's the only information you have and you have to use relaxation with them, which one would you choose? Noise scan. What else? Muscle progressive muscle relaxation. Why? Right, that's right, because I would choose progressive muscle relaxation. This is a woman who has been chronically like this for ages, years. Her children almost was born like, seeing a mother like this. So they see nothing wrong with it. And that lady actually gave new biofeedback, which is like a machine to give her feedback about like your muscles are so tense. Because she didn't realize it. And over time, she learned to actually use it. But for her to just even body scan is not enough because she would say, but she feels stressed, she couldn't sleep. But once she tenses up, like she's like this, but when I do this, oh, it's a bit more painful. So that's a good point, okay? Let's go to number 4. There's an older man who actually, in a real case, who witnessed someone who had drowned on the beach. Remember seeing that when I was in some age. What would you avoid using? right? Because often people use beach scenes, right? Of course, usually I ask the client to say, pick your own scene. Because like you think that beach is relaxing, they may not. They may have bad experiences. Some people I just enjoy sitting in front of a fireplace. Even if I go to my cottage, I don't go to the beach, I sit in front of a fireplace. That's why I find relaxing. So let them bring in their own description. Okay, I usually actually ask them to say, think about a picture on the wall. Because they're in your office. They cannot jump to the beach scene. Think about a picture on the wall. What is it? Describe it to me. And that's how we enter. It's not a story, how we enter the picture. And then they filter in with all the different stuff, stimuli, the tactile, the warmth on the sand, the sun beaming on the shoulder, and the waves, use imagination, right? And that's why going quickly into choosing a CD may not be the best. And the one I like to use is called the canoe on the loon neck, which is not no music, nothing. It's just like the sound of someone canoeing. And there's this loon, that picks up. It reminds me of my time as a student going at Wong Park. It's very relaxing. So everyone has own particular choice, right? But some also have very negative experiences, right, with that as well. Okay. Number 7. Old lady focuses on somatic complaints for the body. What would you not use? And what would you use? So you say something? Actually, this is the tricky one. Okay, I may not use actually that may be the one I avoid using because I'm talking about someone who is not aware of just specific pain. She's somatic in the whole body without pain. So when you get her to focus on the body, she may have a lot of complaints. She may focus more on the distress. Okay, so there may not be something that you would focus on. But if you pick so-called the wrong one, that's okay. They'll give you feedback that, gee, that's not a good one. Let's pick another one, right? Or sometimes they pick something and then they actually avoid it and they go to the tangent. They go to something else. They will pick something which is more meaningful to their use. So it's okay if you so-called pick the wrong one. That's perfectly okay, right? Let's just try one more. Anyone want to pick one? We can go with. What do you pick one?
What about number 6? An athletic management process.
Right, okay. What would you choose or not choose?
Because I see that for a lot.
Right. Yeah, so what would you usually, if you were to do relaxation, what would you do?
Oh. Actually, it's not on this list, but I know one called walking meditation. And you take off your shoes and you just walk around in a circle.
Yeah.
And you feel the bottom of your feet touch the ground and then slowly lift up. And you do it for like 15 minutes,
Right.
so that you get into the rhythm. So I see that for you. So I think I might.
That's a good point. You see, there are people who don't use any of this at all because they're so restless. They can't be still. So activities are good. Of course, we have a situation before where someone may not be able to, they hurt their leg, they cannot, and they feel very limited, right? Otherwise, what you want to introduce that when they do the walk, when they exercise, sometimes when they do that, their mind is still filled with the stress, the anxiety. They may be jogging and all that, so they get a benefit from the workout, but they might not resting. So what you can introduce the fact that when you jog, look at the trees, right? Look at in the neighborhood, what houses are being built. So to take their attention away from their thought while they're still exercising. Because people can do things, but their mind is still, stressed. Let me give you a good example. Let's say you go on a holiday. You go to a nice beach in Cancun, right? You just arrive and you take your, beach towel and just lie there, and everything's just beautiful. Much better than your image. Then you thought, gee, when I left home today from Toronto, did I switch off my stove? That happened to someone actually was in a movie, and it's actually that, oh, did I switch off my stove? And they have to go back home to check. They did, but then they were worried. Now that's a good example that you can have all the best audio, visual stimuli, but your mind is worried, and all the things are worried. Flip the coin, right? They are amidst all the distracting noises. They are whatever, right? Equally, if the mind can flip, tuning, that's very powerful. Because what is happening is everything is filtered through here. So people who have anxiety in social situations or anxious in a call, people have agoraphobia for panic attacks, when they learn good relaxation, we get them to actually practice it inside the ball. They sit on the bench, they close their eyes, tons of noise around them. They tune in. Because that's what they need to practice. And that's why we may use different type of CD and stuff like that, but ultimately we want to train them that the CD is in their head. Because they're not going to pick up their CD and listen, in the moment of stress. They're going to rely on their little tape inside their head music, right? So that's important. I'm aware of time. So any question about the relaxation piece that we want you to highlight?
Yes. It's not in the list, but if the person is angry, do we use relaxation or do grounding?
Well, remember that even when you do that piece of relaxation early on, some can tune in right away because you're pretty well trained. Often people cannot, right? So, I would think that relaxation can be very good for anger management. Because people talk about, I want to yell, you want to shout, you want to push, right? And for anger management, which is not stress management, but related. People who are stressed, I have an example about an angry man on the first example. And anger usually are being pushed up because they're stressed, right? And it's important that I take that few minutes or seconds to de-escalate. So idea is not to find out why you're angry with recipe, but say you're so angry, your heart is beating fast and all that. But you know what? If you can tune out, when you feel symptoms are reduced somewhat, the reason why you're so mad at the person also reduced. You're still mad, you're still angry, but the need to lash out is less because you're not driven by emotion. So it can be applied. Okay, but for them to know that we're not resolving our problem. Because they say, no, I'm still angry with him. That's okay. We just want to de-escalate. Right? So that's very important. And therefore, in establishing a scale, it's important. See, after you've done that, you were at 9. You're still angry, but you're now at 6. You can talk with more sense. And moreover, you will see on the list that on page 13, other than ratings from 0 to 10, we talk about identifying symptoms and the way they manifest the stress, right? Because my way of manifesting stress may be I've got heartbeat fast. You may be got a crunched fist. You may have a frown on your forehead. So when they only do that, they realize not only does it de-escalate, but they see the symptoms emotionally reduces. It gives you confidence. They give you encouragement that, gee, it works. But we're realistic. We're not resolving those issues, but I help you to reduce.
So in that case, for an angry person, what kind of skill is the best to?
Angry person?
An angry person.
Well, I think it's not matter whether it's angry, it's matter of are they visualizing, right? Are they a somatic person, right? Often they're not. If they're usually more physical, like when they're angry, and if they're not a somatic person, then are always complaining, but they're just aware that the heaviness of the chest, the face are red, then it's okay to do focus scanning. And you're realizing that your face is all red, right? Your fist is off. And when you do that, why don't you loosen up? It's like they don't see themselves, but you can see them like this. Why don't you just loosen up your hands? If they are a really good visualizer, I feel hot. Can you imagine that there's a nice breeze blowing against you on the beach? And as we breathe out, reduce the temperature. So even though those different techniques seem to be separate, once you know the person, you can incorporate them. Like visual imagery, the cooling, as opposed to the skeleton on the face. You can incorporate them, right? So I think for an angry person, we're often driven by the physical symptoms, and reduce it. Yeah. I give one example. There was a counselor who was counseling this man who find the wife very annoying, very stressful and all that, right? So, and he was saying to him that, what? Whenever you're like this, why don't you imagine the woman that you married? Okay? And he did that, and he tried to do that and all that. And after the session, he was saying that, what? My wife seems better to me. She's not as annoying. He didn't know why. But most likely because his behavior began to change. Now, this is actually CBT. We go into that a little bit. The counselor didn't say, was it distorted thought, they didn't talk about evidence checking, they just said, imagine the wife that you married. By able to shift that, of course he married her for good reasons, right? Over time, how couples are like, right? All the bad things are shifted. But once he visualizes that, he remembers the woman that he married. And some of those virtues are still there, but he selectively forget. But once he does the exercise, his demeanor changes. And even though they're not doing therapy, that benefit get transpired. So I just want to use an example that how doing CBT the classical way is one thing, but you can actually incorporate a lot of skills that has the same principle behind it. Okay, anything else about the relaxation before we move on to CBT? You're okay with that? So the idea is that establish scale, encourage them to find a way that they can relax. Doesn't have to be those 5, with others, but try to use them because they're very good little short, quick little approaches they can use when they're limited. And try to find one that works for them, and if able to get them to practice a little bit. Once they practice it, if they don't practice in a session, unlikely they'll practice it. When they've got 5 minutes to use it, they say, oh, it works, it's more likely they will use it, right? And then you check with them the whole week, have you tried, and all that. And try to establish in their own little repertoire. Okay? All right, okay, so let's move on to the CBT, right? Okay. Now, let me ask you this, because many of you were in the session last Friday with Kenneth Fong, right? Now, which you are now more or less very much aware of CBT. Before I dive into what we want to use today's time on as a trainer, what is it that you're looking for? Beyond what you have done already, that will help you as a trainer for these people coming for stress session. What do you need? In one word, in one sentence. Not elaborate, just one sentence. You should learn to heard all this already, right? But it's one thing that you need more to carry this forward as a trainer for your workshop.
For this training.
For this training. Because you're going to take this to go to a workshop before service providers or for actually lay people. What is it that, given all the knowledge you already gained, what is it that you think that, it would be good if I can have this one more thing?
I think the last time we
One
had,
sentence.
One sentence. Okay, let me gather my thoughts.
Can someone else go first?
Can we have quick reference to this one? This is like in terms of skills or techniques.
Okay, all right.
So that I can go back and check. Okay.
Okay, good, okay.
References.
Good, okay. That's a good point. Okay, thanks. Any other comment?
CBT in a group.
In a group setting, okay, good.
Yeah.
Which I hope to cover. What else? One more suggestions? One thing that you will leave today and feel that, gee, that fill in the blank.
Those situations not workable in CBT situations.
All right, thanks for this feedback. Let me say this, CBT is not for everyone. For 2 reasons, right? The client that you work with, not all for them necessarily. It might not be for you as a practitioner. And there are repertoire of different skills, right? But we want to be exposed to it and pick and choose to use it. And I think that CBT is a good enough framework that many people can actually buy into, particularly when we don't force it down the throat. Okay? So I think the purpose is that when we bring to our training, particularly for stress management, CBT as initial starter work very well with anxiety folks, depressed folks, right? Of course, it will expand in other areas, people who have psychotic episodes, people with borderline personality, which are not necessarily the focus group to begin with, right? Now, again, CBT like relaxation, the idea is sort of simple, or sometimes even too simple. Like relaxation, to do well is very hard, okay? Because things are not like, as I put out, A, B, C. Like the simple thing is that, okay, A is an activating event. You think something happened, right? Think about always like simple model, right? I walk past, Maria didn't look at me, Maria, right? She didn't look at me. And then I feel a bit upset. I know her well, she didn't greet me. Usually the thought is not there. Because we are emotional people, we are triggered by the emotion. I may not even be aware of the trigger initially. I just don't feel good. After sit down, I don't feel good. Then realize the fact I just passed Maria. She didn't even say hello to me. Right? I get distressed. Right? Then I just go to the B, which is what like the belief system. Right? Because I think that Maria doesn't like me. Right? She didn't respect me or she made an argument, which is my thought. So the idea is that emotion we can't change so easily. We can modulate it. We can how to do relaxation, how to hit a sandbag in front of each other person. Like that's the manifestation of anger or stress. But I'm angry. I can say that I'm angry in a civil way, or I can punch you. So anger management is to teach someone to say, how can you express anger in a civil, acceptable manner? But you can't say to the person that you cannot be angry. So the idea about CBT is that the thought is more under your control. The trigger isn't. Maria just passed me, she didn't say hello to me, I could not control that. First it's past, it's gone. I'm sure we solve the relationship later, but it's gone. And even actual relationship resolution, it may not work. It takes two to dance. But my thought belongs to me, right? Now I know that, the scenario is about, we touch on that a little bit about what is the fact, what a true situation like you imagine, right? So I think the way of resolving that is that not even try to say it's true or not. It is your subjective experience of it. Because as a counselor, as a trainer, often you are in a situation, particularly in couple therapy. You don't know, or you work with youth, they tell you one thing, the parents say something else. Your role is not to judge. I think that's mentioned about your role, right, initially in the beginning. Our role is not to judge. 清官難審家庭事 for those who understand Cantonese, right? You can't really tease out the fact. But the way of dealing with it is that someone is in control more than they know about the emotion and thought. But don't make them feel that to blame. That is not blaming. That is to empower them. I'm upset with Maria. Let's forget about who's right and wrong. But I leave that corridor fuming and it affected the rest of my afternoon. That's not beneficial to me. And I'm the only one who can do something about it. So give them power, right? Okay, to make that, so that possible change and to their benefit. And that's why the ABC, we can change the situation. And there are many ways of dealing with it, better housing or through couple therapy or through advocating for the needs and all. Those are very important. Or to do relaxation or to do different ways of handling the stress and all that. That's the C part, the consequence. C is the consequence, A is the activating, which is like a trigger. But if we only have chemists to work with in the office, right? I only have you two and your thought to work with that. And that's the beauty of CBT, okay? That it can fill that need a little bit. Okay, you follow what I'm trying to say, right? But moreover, even though you're not the judge, you can hear internal little conflicts, right? Okay? Because that is going to be your evidence. For those who are here, remember that we're doing some role play? I was doing it with Lucetta, right? And she was just a depressed woman, her husband ran away to another woman, she was upset and all that, right? So I didn't even interview the husband. All she may be saying is totally her side of the event. But I don't need to know the husband's side of the story. That's the reality, right? But I'm looking for inherent inconsistency. It is the fact that she was saying that, my all, my hope, my whatever is dashed, right? That's one inconsistency, that leaving a relationship doesn't mean that you are suicidal. Doesn't mean that all your hope is gone. Secondly, she still comes and seek help. So she's not totally helpless. She's not totally given up hope. So even the story itself gives you a bit of that little book of discrepancies to work on with them, right? You okay with that so far? So that's the A, B, C, right? Now, I hope we have some time for our little case scenario, so I have to rush through, but if I'm rushing too fast, you stop me. If I'm missing something important, you want to say something, don't hesitate, right? Okay. Now, the idea about good about to impart on your participant is that many thoughts are automatic. That means that they are, like this. Therefore, when I saw Maria on the corridor, I didn't even think about the fact that she rejected me. Those are very emphatic thoughts. I just feel yuck. So people who think that I'm not a thinker, I'm not a rational person, I'm a very emotive person, CBT might not work for me. Well, yes and no. Most people are driven by the gut feeling. Even rational people, they don't think that, blah, 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 blah. They just go with gut feeling first. Right?
Even men?
Even men. They just don't want to admit it. Right? Okay? They just try to rationalize it. But it's usually emotions what drive. When you meet a nice girl or nice guy, you don't sort of say, okay, he's like this or she's like this, and you have a checklist. You have a gut feeling that, that's what we call intuition, right? Intuition, say, women have good intuition. But women's intuition come from where? Experiences. They're not come from nowhere. They just, and the experiences come and then they come out. But when you actually do analysis with them, they can list down for you where intuition comes from. Same with emotions, right? So the automatic thoughts are there. You don't realize it. I'm just so upset. Particularly go with strong emotions. So there's a term called hot cognition, meaning that the cognition which is hot, okay? Then you're aware of it. That's emotions or thoughts that link up together. So that I felt rejected by Maria. It's a strong word. She just didn't read me, right? That's a rejection. Rejection is the thought. It's not an emotion. Rejection is that I may feel bad, I may feel left out, I may feel, pissed, I may feel, angry. But the thought is the fact that Maria rejected me. That's an automatic thought. That's almost like without giving the proof. Okay? So to go back to Roberta's list, in your appendices, the list of automatic thoughts, which are common. They rejected me, or you hate me, or I'm not important, my self-worth, right? But automatic thoughts are likely. It's almost like on the surface. If you think about the little Venn diagram, it's on the outer layer. On your list, you have also what we call core belief. And schema term has been used before, right? Now when you think about schema, think about visualize a picture, squares, rectangles, circles. Imagine that's how you think. If Heidi is a circle person, right? And let's say Rachel, right, is a rectangle person. That's the way they think. Okay? They're different thinking style. Okay? So let's say if Heidi is a circle person, and the circle says that I'm not worth company, right? I'm not good. People are very low self-esteem. People have gone through a lot of tough time and experiences reinforce the fact that they are very yucky. So Rachel said, geez, great work, good work, good presentation, good compliment. Even the trick is that Rachel said, right? But Heidi's reaction is blah. But no positive emotional response. Now then I think, what is the B? The trigger A activating event is you did good work. Response is blah. What possibly Heidi could be thinking if you were Heidi? What would you be thinking, Heidi, if you had the blah reaction to a compliment? Have just being a low self-esteem person. What would you be saying to yourself?
Like I would be thinking that the person's perception of me does not match with my own reality.
Exactly. Because schema is a hard core. It's what core belief. It's something which is stuck with it. You've been through it years. Believe or not, even people compliment you, you may not want to accept. You know why? Sorry? You don't believe in it. Why you don't want to believe it? It's a good thing. People say that you look great, you look beautiful, you do good presentation. Because people don't like changes. We are hold on to habits. People are habit people. You usually go to order food and try, the restaurant or the same food, you go to same seat. run group, you've done all the group before. They come in the first time, they randomly sit themselves. Next time, they go back to the same seat that they sat the first time. And actually, after 3 sessions, they say, let's do Daifeng Chui, let's blow you around. They're so reluctant. They almost feel this is my seat. For no good reason. They randomly plumb themselves in the first seat, on the first meeting. Right? They just don't want changes. So imagine yourself having been in that thinking pattern. You're comfortable. Comfortable doesn't mean that you're happy. But I'm okay. Maybe in another seat. I'm not worth it. Don't ask me to change. Because if you do, and every time someone comes in, after you evaluate, is this true, is that true? It's easy to say that, I'm just being nice. Right? She's just a nice person. Just want to tell me the fact that I did a horrible job. Right? So that's a core belief. Right? And you see in your appendices that there's a list of what we call core belief, which is very entrenched. And therefore, when I said CBT is easy to apply because it's change of thought, right? Identify the belief system. Hard to do because there are a lot of things that are holding them back from doing it. And of course, like any counseling or therapy, you need good rapport, good relationship, right? I mean, that's a given. Because otherwise, so why are you challenging me? Because I think that we talked about transfer and counter-transference before, right? When you want to try to change the beliefs, why are you arguing with me? Why won't you listen to me? See, if the core believes the fact that no one ever believed me. See, here he goes. My counselor doesn't even believe me. Now, I saw this little comic strip. It's very funny. So this guy was in therapy, right? Okay, and let's say if you were the one being counselor, I'm the therapist. So I was sitting to you, and I had my sort of leg on your knees, and the caption says, you said that I'm often being taken advantage by people. She felt being taken advantage, and she was kind of a therapist, right? And the therapist was putting her feet on top of the lap just to rest. Okay? So basically, it's sort of say that like very often our beliefs are being affirmed by our distorted belief, right? Even in session. Okay, so be aware of the fact that that can happen. So even CBT is almost like a rational, very sort of tactic manual, right? But you need to use it well because a manual is just a manual. You know that. When you bring it to the battle, it's a good reference. But very often, that takes place in a session. And that's again what we call hot cognition. That happens right there. That's better than anything else. Because what they tell you are things outside. But what's happening in a session is real life, right? But don't get into that trap. That reinforces that distorted belief. That there you go again, you also take advantage. So trying to force a certain paradigm, you may lose the forest when trying to save the tree, right? So that's very important. Again, there's a whole list of distorted belief. But also don't believe that they all have it, right? Because some people don't have it. Don't think that like, oh, you have so low self-esteem, therefore you're like that. Even if you believe that they have, don't tell them. Let them come up with it. Because I think we mentioned before, if they come in, they bring it out, it belongs to them. If you told them, it belongs to you, right? So they own it more, and also they can use it better, right? So that's the whole list of core belief, which is stable as schema, right? And they are typical distortions. Now, basically, in CBT, you could either challenge the thought, right? Okay? By facts, right? If they're facts, okay? You say, well, no one will like it. This example, right? If someone says no one will like it. If a client says to you that no one likes me, and you try to change them, what would you do? You might give example that no, Uber likes you, she sit next to you. If she doesn't like you, she will assist somewhere else, right? You can give counter example, right? Which is called evidence checking. Because very often people, and again in the appendices, which I won't go through, is a list of different things that people do. And that would be what we call either mind filter, or in other words, like selective. There may be 100 things, but you select them. Okay? So say, no one likes me. Oh no, but nobody likes you. Now, that's a fact checking. But often that may not be enough. Because evidence is not always enough. Very often it is, think about the thinking. There's a core belief. The core belief may be what? Oh yeah, we better like me. The core belief may be, I need everyone to like me. Right? For me to feel okay. If one people dislike me, if So Young doesn't like me, it ruins my mood. So yes, nobody likes me, but So Young represents the human race. Now that is a distorted thinking. Because in reality, we can't get everyone to like us. Right? So very often, resistance line, I think we'll talk about different lines, the distorted thinking is make it impossible. Because there will always be all the anxious people, right? The stressed people. Well, you know what? That thing will be resolved. Unlikely, you will not have this huge debt, right? Very often your mother's illness will be treated. You give them all the evidence. They say, what if the cancer doesn't get treated? It could be only 10% not being treated. But she focused on the 10%, and that's enough to ruin the day. So evidence would not be enough in that situation. Say, so what if she doesn't get treated? Right? And there are other fears that go below that. You want to say something?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Stretching. That's good relaxation.
I have to say something, sorry. This room has another group at 1 p.m. So they're waiting. So either we move to another room to finish up or what? So Roberta, what do you think?
I can stay for another 15 minutes or so. If you want to, I don't know about you.
In that case, we have to move to another room. Yeah.
I mean, do we want to stay for the extra time?
We're okay to stay.
So while you walk to relax and be aware of the trees and the wall, for that you can few minutes, okay?